Wow, we are struggling for 2017.
Yes, indeed.
So you've mentioned the Boko Haram issues. We've talked about the Fulani herdsmen and farmers. From last year, 2015, we started, yes, we're talking about Boko Haram. It was more of Boko Haram, but we're now here. They've been technically defeated, even though we still see some bombings here and there of soft targets. But the issue of the herdsmen and the farmers really came to the fore. Several lives were lost this year. How do you think this can be tackled in the coming year?
First and foremost, in the coming year, I want to challenge our law enforcement agencies to begin to measure. They need to do the numbers thing. You see, you can't control anything you don't measure. Most of what I have seen in tackling these threats is mired in sentiments, religious, ethno-cultural, political sentiments. But if you do the numbers, it's clear. If, for example, we're able to append a figure to the cost to this nation of these bandits we call cattle rustlers, the costs in terms of resources, the costs in terms of human lives, okay? Even the costs in terms of our security index rating globally. If you check what we call the global peace index, you discover that we're not doing well. If you go to the global terrorist index, we kind of have stabilized and are improving, given the global parameter level. But if you narrow it down to nationally, we still are struggling. We are doing much, but then that equilibrium, we are yet to strike it. So basically, what do we need to do to clear every and all doubts is to begin to give you numbers. For example, I could tell you XYZ much people lost ABC much food crops and lives in some village in Benue State. Quantify the loss of crops and begin to see the correlation between that and the availability of staples in the next season. Maybe just 10 bandits were able to put enough damage on ground that is going to affect everything we do and ultimately GDP. What is GDP? GDP is just the sum total of goods and services that have been exchanged within a period. You also look at that figure and weigh it against how it's going to shut that area down from point of occurrence to point of recovery. Not progress now, recovery. That is how much time, how much effort, what are the expenditures that will be required to put that place back to where it was before mayhem. That's your cost of violence. What about the impact, the economic impact? If we were to decompose that, let's leave Nigeria out. Let's say the economic impact of that on the village.
Captain, do we have this information?
We don't have it because we shy away from the numbers. We run away from the numbers because people don't want to be transparent.
So the problem is not a question of desire to end the situation. The thing is, they don't want transparency.
Transparency, exactly. I see a propensity of our public office handlers having this allergy to figures. So it's in itself is an indicator of non-transparency.
So even the security operatives who are meant to protect, who are meant to ensure that the country is safe, they also shy away from the figures?
Most of the time you hear our security chieftains give briefs. They do essays. They tell stories. I want to see graphics. I want to see figures. I want to see ratios. I want to see percentages. I want to see things people can sit down and interrogate at a glance. We got this much and we took a spike this much. And if we get this much more, we look at getting to that point. That's more like it.
So that's information gathering too.
Information gathering, yes, but then the management and dissemination needs to take what I call a graphic and not essays. I mean, you've had our chieftains grant interviews and they'll be telling you things that are not really you know, you cannot measure it. If you say there's been an improvement, for example, in security in my compound, relative what? Last year we had 2 quarrels in the compound. This year we've had 1. So we've seen a 60% improvement, that kind of thing.
Colonel Dari,
yes, please.
This idea of what Captain Umar has just put forward, numbers, he believes that we can't really measure the extent of improvement or degradation in our security apparatus and operations without looking at the numbers. And he believes we don't have the numbers right now. Do you agree with that?
Well, honestly, I agree with what Captain Umar has said about numbers. But here, Mr., the problem is fundamental. Yes. You recall I just, in my remarks, in my opening remarks, I mentioned what we need to challenge, to fight crime in this country. One of the major requisites is a robust database. A robust database. And do you keep data when some of the people are not even educated enough? So that's why I see it as a very, very fundamental problem.
What you're implying is we need to take the security apparatus in this country, whip it up, and more like start all over again.
Absolutely. We need a restructuring, a major surgical operation.
You know, some of your colleagues might shoot you for saying that.
Well, I mean, my colleagues know me and they know I stand by the truth. Okay? I'm not here to patronize anybody, but we're here to improve, to find ways and means and discuss how to improve.
Okay, so if I get you correctly,
yes,
in the military structure, there's no effective database and management of that database. In the internal security structure, that's the police, civil defense, immigration, customs, DSS, there's no proper data, or how do you robust data?
No, please mark my words. I said we need a robust database as a nation. When we're talking national security, we are not isolating, talking the military alone, not the army,
that's why
no.
If you notice, I said military and then internal security, police, DSS, and all of that. So now what you're saying is putting them all together, we don't have enough data.
No, I'm not talking about. I mean, I believe the various arms and services, or the various paramilitary groups, they all have, I'm sure they have the data, they know the number of people that are on their payroll, they know the number of people that they have to take care of, you know. But again, one thing there is there should be, we must instill transparency, accountability, and discipline across the board, even for the military. I dare to say that. But when I talk about a robust data, I am talking about national, and that includes you and I, not just the military or the police or the paramilitary, for everybody, such that if there is a crime, the police should be able to look into their data bank and say, oh, Mr. X was involved in XYZ crime, okay? And they readily bring those things convincingly, all right? And of course, this will also help us to check, you know, all the other crimes like drug trafficking, like human trafficking, like all other violent crimes such as rape, cultism, forced labor, sexual exploitation. So that is exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, we'll just take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about transparency, accountability, and discipline, because one major issue also was the end SARS, you know, people saying they want SARS scrapped. How can we make our security operatives better in 2018? We'll be back in a moment.